Matthew chapter 2, Herod kills babies to eliminate Jesus as a threat. Pentateuchal parallel, Pharaoh kills babies to eliminate Hebrew threat. Matthew chapter 3, baptism. Pentateuchal parallel, Red Sea. What does Jesus do after the wilderness, or after the baptism? He goes into the wilderness. What do the children of Israel do after the Red Sea? They go into the wilderness. What do they do in the wilderness? Sinai. What does Jesus do right after the wilderness? Sermon on the Mount. What happens on Sinai? They receive the law. What happens on the Sermon on the Mount? Jesus comments on the law. See, there's no way anyone reading this in the first century is missing that Matthew is very carefully indicating that Jesus is Moses. Jesus is the son of David. Jesus is the son of Abraham. Jesus is Yahweh himself. Matthew is pulling together all of these things in the Old Testament to say, who puts together the 12 tribes of Israel? Yahweh. Who puts together the 12 disciples? Jesus. Jesus is Yahweh. Who gives the law on Sinai? Yahweh. Who comments on the law on the Sermon on the Mount? Jesus. All of this stuff, this is all to couch. This is almost like missiological, right? Like contextualizing the gospel to your audience. He's taking the Old Testament and saying, this is what you value, so let me show you Jesus in what you value. Let me show you Jesus in what you understand. Matthew, like I said, is huge for the Old Testament. If you understand the Old Testament, you understand Matthew. Matthew does a wonderful job of contextualizing Jesus' ministry in terms of what happens in the Old Testament. Okay, and so if you get anything at all from this lecture, it's read the Old Testament. Read the Old Testament more. The thing that I mentioned in the last lecture about Matthew 2:15 and Hosea 11:1. Hosea 11:1 is talking about a historical event, so how can it be a prophecy? Well, if Matthew is trying to show his audience that everything that happens to Israel happens to Jesus. He's trying to show his audience, like we saw in the last video, that where Israel failed, Jesus succeeds. Then if Israel had an Exodus, Jesus has to have an Exodus. And what's fascinating about Matthew 2:15 is Jesus' Exodus is actually from the Promised Land to Egypt. Because think about it, in the Exodus, they leave Egypt because the Pharaoh is killing children. Where does Jesus leave because of children being killed? He doesn't leave Egypt. He leaves the Promised Land, the exact opposite of what we get in the Exodus. He leaves the Promised Land, and where does he go for safety? He goes to Egypt. So the Messiah is safe, not in Israel, but in the historic enemy of Israel in Egypt. I mean, this is a shocking turn of events in Matthew's gospel, that in 2:15 that he would say, Hosea 11:1 has yet again been fulfilled because God has called his child out of Egypt. And in this instance, what is Egypt? Israel. And what's the Promised Land? Egypt. This is just, it's mind-blowing, right? It's so controversial. It's so confrontational. And we're only going to understand this if we read the Old Testament. We're only going to understand this if we understand the Old Testament. Well, thanks for bearing with me and all of my soapboxes here. This is one of my favorite topics, so I apologize if I went a little too long on any of this. Like always, feel free to speed me up on YouTube and skip through stuff. It's a wonderful feature on YouTube that you can use. So thanks so much, and look forward to seeing your work as always.